David, who are you actually? If you would have to introduce yourself in a few sentences, how would you do that?
Well, first of all, welcome to this crystal cave. I'm sure this is a first for you as it's a first for me.
It is.
How would I describe myself? Well, years and years ago, I was what is called a mainstream journalist. And there were constraints, obviously, in what you could write, what you could say, the areas that you could go into. And there were things called editors saying, that can get in, that can get on air, that can't. I'm still a journalist, but I have no constraints. I don't have anyone telling me where I can go and where I can't go, what I can investigate and what I can't investigate. And thus, I am doing the job that if the mainstream media did the same without constraints, we would live in a very different world, because we would know things about what is happening politically in terms of finance and endless other things that we don't currently know. And it's kind of interesting and so appropriate that we're talking at this time when emails leaked by WikiLeaks have confirmed the themes of so much that I've been writing about over the years, not least the Clinton family that I've been exposing since the mid-1990s, and how what we call democracy is actually a farce.
But when we talk about your predictions, you've made many predictions or prophecies, if you will, over the years. What has become true specifically?
Well, first of all, very topically, I said in the 1990s that the plan was for a Third World War. And this would pitch the West against China and Russia. At the time I said that, there was no evidence whatsoever that that was going to be the case. In fact, the evidence was the opposite of that. Things were quite calm. Now, when you look around you, if you do it with an open mind, you can see that pieces are blatantly being put into place to trigger such a conflict. You've got this massive build-up of NATO more and more.
So we're already in the middle of
not least in relation to Estonia. And you've got this blatant demonization of Russia. You know, I burnt the toast, it's the Russians. I'm late for school, it's the Russians. And, you know, when you see what has come out just through the Clinton emails and the emails of the Democratic Party, and you see, for instance, as I've been saying for so long, that ISIS and Al-Qaeda and other terrorist groups are actually funded and put into place to create an enemy by the West, not least Britain and America. And now we're having it confirmed through these emails that Hillary Clinton knew that Saudi Arabia and Qatar were...
Well, there are many people who disagree with your conclusions of these emails.
And? What are your conclusions then?
Well,
when she's saying that she knew that Qatar and Saudi Arabia were funding ISIS and terrorist groups, while she was taking multi-millions from the same Qatar and Saudi Arabia for her Clinton Foundation.
Do you draw a straightforward conclusion that the ISIS and whatever these fundamentalists are actually, I don't know, established or actually run by the Americans?
They are run by the Americans, and they're created by the Americans. And because of compartmentalization, only having people know what they need to know to make their contribution, the vast majority of people that are jihadists, they will not have a clue about that. You know, there was a television investigative reporter in France recently who went undercover with a terrorist group in Europe. When he came out and spoke on the television channel, he said what he was dealing with was not Islamic fundamentalists, but basically young people who were completely lost, completely manipulated, and he called them fast food jihadists who had no clue or connection to Islam in the sense of we're fighting for for God. The whole way it's been presented in this black and white way has created these apparent sides when actually the difference between the two is very much fuzzier. And then you've got Zbigniew Brzezinski, Jimmy Carter's former national security advisor, who spoke to a French news magazine some years ago now and admitted openly that during his tenure as national security advisor, they trained, armed, and funded the groups in Afghanistan that became known as the Mujahideen, because he said he wanted them to attack the Soviet satellite regime in Kabul, to entice Russia to invade Afghanistan, to protect that Kabul government, and give them, in his words, their Vietnam. That is precisely what happened, and 1 million Afghans died as a result. What happened to the Mujahideen? They morphed into the Taliban, they morphed into Al-Qaeda, they morphed into ISIS. You put the dots together, and there's another sequence that people need to realize. In the year 2000, there was a document published by an organization in America known in the mainstream media as the neoconservatives. They that were behind the Bush administration. And in September 2000, this organization, the Project of the New American Century, set out a plan of regime change in country after country in the Middle East, Libya, Syria, Iraq, etc. And they said in that document that this process of transformation, of regime change, would only be possible and only be done in any reasonable speed with another Pearl Harbor to focus the minds of the American people to say, yes, we've got to do this. And what happened a few months after that document was published, those same people came to power with George Bush in January 2001. And 9 months later, 1 year to the month since that document was published, we had what Bush called in America the Pearl Harbor of the 21st century, 9/11. As a result of that, that list of countries has been systematically picked off and is still happening in Syria.
On the topic of your predictions, back in the 90s, you predicted that the world will come to an end by 1997 by tidal waves and earthquakes and whatever.
Look, mate, hold on a second. Right. Now,
20 years later.
There's a massive backstory to that, which of course you won't be interested in. If you take what I've been writing in my books since the 1990s and you look at what's happening in the world now, it's extraordinary how the two are the same. And why do thousands of people come to see my events around the world, from all walks of life, from all colours, all backgrounds, all creeds, all income brackets? Because they're crazy, because they're stupid? No, because they have an open mind that says this makes sense to me, or at least I'm going to see if the information makes sense, and it does, and that's why so many people are now interested in my work. Now you can say, oh, let's go back 26 years when I was having a massive mind experience that changed my life, and let's stay there. Let's put that there. Or we can be adult and we can be mature and we can say, look, since this guy started writing books, look at what he's written and look at what has happened. Well, and that's what people are doing.
Your opponents say that you predict so many things. You talk about a vast array of stuff that you're bound to hit a nail sometimes, so to speak.
Right across what I've been writing about is now being confirmed. One of the things I've been writing about, if you want to go deeper into this, since what must be best part of 15 years, is that we live in the equivalent of a cosmic video game, a virtual reality universe. If you follow scientific thought and you look at some real mainstream people who've come out recently in the last few years who are saying the same. They're saying that actually is the only thing that makes sense of.
Well, they're speculating.
They're not.
That's proven.
Well,
to my understanding.
Of course. What do you call proof? You have to look at the evidence and then conclude: do I think the evidence is substantial enough for me to start to encompass this? When you've got mathematicians and physicists like Max Tegmark at the Massachusetts Institute of Technology coming out and pointing out that the physics of our reality is the same as the physics of a video game. When you have other mainstream scientists coming out and saying the same, this mad guy was saying this ages and ages ago. But this is not about, I said this and so look how great I am. This is actually just balancing out this response to me by the mainstream, which is this guy's crazy, therefore we're going to come from that perspective that he's crazy in the way we report it.
If we take the picture a bit wider, if I understand your theories correctly, your view of things is that a large part of the global elite is actually shape-shifting reptiles who want to establish the new world order.
Well, that's an incredibly simplistic way of putting it, but in the time.
But if you want to boil it down,
you can't boil down something that's simplistic. You have to expand upon it, right? Let me put this to you. According to mainstream science, the electromagnetic spectrum is 0.005% of what exists in this universe. Visible light, which is the only frequency band that we can see, is a tiny fraction of the 0.005%. Humans are basically...
Our perceptions are very, very limited.
Right. Okay.
But I have a hard time agreeing that Barack Obama or the royal family are reptiles.
Okay. What research have you done on it?
Well...
I'll tell you. No, mate. Answer the question. How much research have you done on it? I've done 26 years of research in 60 countries. What have you done? Zero. So no wonder you have a hard time getting your head around it. Why? How would you get your head around something you haven't even researched? It's ridiculous. But classic mainstream. The other thing is that according to mainstream science and their projection of the size of the universe, planet Earth is the equivalent, by comparison, of 1/1,000,000th of a pinhead. So, let's put it at very least here, right? There is a vast, extraordinary amount more to know than we know. Thus, people keep their minds open. They actually look at the evidence and read the books.
What is the evidence? Can you explain briefly? How did you come to the deduction that many dignitaries or prominent people are actually alien reptiles or half-breeds of reptiles?
When you are hybrids, actually, when you are you are researching something and you have an open mind. When you travel to the best part of 60 countries over the last 26 years, you meet a lot of people in many different walks of life. And when you constantly keep coming across people in different countries who are telling you of their experience of seeing people in apparently a human form shift into a reptilian, always reptilian, but non-human form, and then back again. When you then talk to shaman and carriers of ancient knowledge around the world in the native peoples, and they tell you about their legends that say exactly the same. When you talk to insiders who will talk to people like me, because they won't be dismissed and called idiots, they'll be listened to, who actually give you the same story. When you talk to the very close friends of people like Princess Diana for 9 years, a lady called Christine Fitzgerald, who, by the way, told me about what Jimmy Savile was doing, this BBC paedophile, and how close he was to the British royal family. She told me also about this whole relationship of reptilian hybrid bloodlines to the British royal family.
But have you actually personally seen one?
No, and I don't have to. You're a journalist, right? Mm-hmm. Do you have to have experienced everything you write about? No, you talk to people, you look at the common themes, you look at how they're saying the same thing, even though they're from different countries and different backgrounds, and then you put the evidence before people, dot connected, and you say, make of it what you will. That's it. And people will look at it and they'll say, yeah, it makes sense to me. They'll look at it and they'll say, nah, it doesn't make sense to me. And either way, from my point of view, is fine. Because all I'm doing is putting information out there, and then people make of it what they will.
By the time this interview will be aired, the US will have a new president, either Hillary Clinton or Donald Trump. Are they also, I don't know, alien?
Trump, I don't know about, but I mean, look at the choice there. Look at the choice there.
Really bad choices.
Just take a deep breath and look at a system that with 320 million people that can throw up a choice for president with massive impacts on the world.
We're not happy about our leaders either, but that doesn't mean that they're aliens.
That actually throws up a choice between a catastrophe and a disaster. Now, what I don't know about Trump, but Hillary Clinton is someone who's come up again and again, going right back into the 1990s. And that's why her connection to this web, to this network, that's why someone, as we speak, we don't know how it's going to turn out yet, but as we speak, someone who is so blatantly corrupt and to an extraordinary level can still be on the verge of becoming president of the United States is extraordinary.
Just to be clear, you're not talking allegorically.
No, I'm not talking allegorically.
It's a metaphor.
No.
You literally mean
this is what you get from some people. Oh, he's using it symbolically. I'm not using it literally. And let me ask you this question. As I said earlier, we can see a tiny fraction of frequency, a slither of frequency we can actually see. Look at the different forms within the tiny sliver of frequency that we can see. Look at the animal kingdom. Look at the incredible number of forms. Do we really believe that out there in the great forever, that almost the entirety of which we cannot see, that forms of what we would call life only take a human form? What? I mean,
I'm not saying that, and my opponents are not saying that.
But my opponents, what you call them opponents, I don't have opponents. Opponents need an enemy. I don't oppose them. So therefore, there's no opponent. They might think they are, but they're not.
On top of the reptile theory, shall we say, pardon for me saying this, you claim that the reality that we perceive is actually holographic.
Yeah, more and more scientists are saying that.
And it's being beamed to us from the rings of Saturn and hollowed out moon, which actually is an alien or reptile portal or a base.
Soviet scientists were saying that in 1970 from the Soviet Academy of Sciences.
You're not joking.
No, I'm not joking. Reality, mate, look.
Is this then, our shared hallucination? Me talking to you, is this real?
It's, put it this way, this is mainstream science or quantum physics, 99% of your body is empty space. Not that there is such a thing, but it has no solidity whatsoever. Your body's made up of atoms, that's what we're told, right? Have you ever seen the inside of an atom? If you take the nucleus of an atom to be the size of a 10-cent piece, then the atom, by comparison, is the size of a cathedral. It's empty space.
How does that relate to my question?
It relates to the fact that in terms of physicality, you can't exist because there's no physicality. When you look at a hologram, even the simple ones that we buy in the shops, they seem to be three-dimensional, and the best of them seem as solid as you and me. We're now having people doing duets on stages, one from this reality and one holographic. And you can hardly see the difference, if at all, with the best of them. So therefore, if you're asking me, do you exist? Or do I exist? Yes, we do, as consciousness. But do you exist as a physical body? I exist as a physical body. This room exists as a physicality. No. You know why? There is no physical. And you know who says that? Quantum physicists.
Why is it that all these theories always take so long to explain? People tell me who support these theories, watch this, I don't know, 3 episodes, 9 hours in total program, and it all will become clear. You give lectures of no less than 10 hours. Mm-hmm. Why so long?
Because if you're talking to me about the world that people perceive as real, then we can talk in sound bites and sentence here, sentence there, because there's no backstory that people have to know before what apparently sounds crazy makes logical sense, which is what happens over 10 hours and in the books. So it has to be explained, and the different dots. I mean, how can you talk about shape-shifting reptilians unless you go into the nature of the fact that there is no physical, it's holographic illusion? How can a solid physical body shapeshift into another solid physical body? They can't. So unless you explain the nature of reality, how can shapeshifting make sense to people? Because the immediate wave of the hand is, it can't happen. How can you have solid body change into solid body? But that's not what's happening. So you see, in all these areas, there has to be a backstory. I know, let's talk about Saturn and the rings and what they are. Let's do it in 2 sentences, shall we? That makes sense to people. You know, we've got to be mature and we've got to be adult. And if people can't be bothered and they say, oh, what, I've got to listen for 10 hours. Well, you're not interested then. You go and watch the television news and the game show and let people who really want to know actually listen.
But if these reptiles are as advanced as you are, they surely could take over the game just like that without taking their time, millennia and millennia,
well, you see,
infiltrating all years.
The thing is, you see, you go again. You're coming from a perspective who's done no research into this, and there is an answer to that, but not in the time that you're going to give it. There'll be an answer to that on Saturday in Tallinn. But not in the space and the time that this program is prepared to give to it. So this is where you are, and this is the challenge of people like me. You know, when I'm talking in the alternative media, they give me time to explain. When I'm talking in the mainstream media, they don't, and you're talking in ways and one-liners. Oh, he believes in shape-shifting reptiles. What's the initial reaction from people to that? With no backstory, well, he's crazy.
I would imagine lots of people are writing hate mail to my boss at the moment for letting you on the air.
Why?
Because they think you're mad.
Really? Do you know something? Being called mad by an idiot is a compliment, so I take it. Thank you very much.
Is there a special message? You have your largest event in this region, in Tallinn, this Saturday. Is there a specific message for the folks here?
For the folks everywhere. You are not your body. You are not your name. You are not your race. You are not your religion. You are not your life story. You are infinite awareness having those experiences. And what's happened to the human race is we've been manipulated to believe our experiences are who we are. Who we are is that consciousness which is having those experiences. The consciousness that stays conscious and expands in its consciousness when it leaves the body at what we call death, which is what's happening to people in a near-death experience. This is why their consciousness continues, because they are that consciousness. And it's just now coming from another perception, because it's left the focus of attention that the body creates, the hologram creates. So if we all realize, think about it, if we all realize that we're just consciousness, expressions of the same consciousness having different experiences, all the fault lines of divide and rule, of race, of religion, of all these different manufactured fault lines of divide and rule, they disappear. Why would an expression of consciousness want to go to war with an expression of that same consciousness if it realized that's what it was? if it thinks it's a Muslim, it's a Jew, it's a middle-class American, then these conflicts can happen, but not if you realize that it's all that. All that is an illusion.
Your critics say that, yes, the world is a scary, at times a scary and a messed up place.
I don't find it a scary place.
You're taking advantage of people's fears.
Oh, really?
Profiting.
Why don't I have
giving lectures?
Why don't I have fear? Why don't I fear any of this?
Lots of people.
And why do I live?
These are unpleasant things.
Why do I live?
Diseases.
All right. Oh yeah.
So
Okay. What we'll do then is we'll go. What we'll do is we'll turn on the television news and we'll watch babies being blown apart in Aleppo, right? And we're not dealing in fear, are we? We're not going to frighten people by having children blown away in Aleppo in a manufactured war. We're not going to have people dying of hunger in a world of plenty on the television news, are we? That's not going to frighten people. And of course, the television news makes no money out of doing that, does it? So it doesn't profit on creating fear. We need to face what's happening in the world so that we can do something about it, right? And if we leave it to the mainstream media, as has been done until recently, look where that got us. Eh?
The point being that bad things do happen, but not for a particular reason.
How do you know?
All the time.
How do you know? How do you know? You don't. These are suppositions which you're giving to me as fact. You ask me to support what I'm saying. You support what you're saying. Right?
Well,
how do you know? How do you know that bad things don't happen because they're made to happen?
My personal perception is that, I don't know.
Now that's different. Your personal perception. That's not what you said.
My knowledge is, or from what I have learned through my 42 years of life, is that if there's a car accident and 3 people die, it's not a lizard conspiracy.
Did I say it was?
If there's a war, it's not necessarily some sort of a conspiracy.
How do you know?
Well, I don't know, but over the millennia...
Let me just ask you this. I said earlier that a document was published in America in 2000 by the people that then became the key players in the Bush administration, people like Rumsfeld and Cheney and Wolfowitz and Dov Zakheim, the comptroller of the entire Pentagon, calling for a series of countries to be regime changed. It said in that document that to make this happen in any kind of speed, we need another Pearl Harbor, right? Okay, 1 year later, America had what Bush called the Pearl Harbor of the 21st century, and as a result of that, the countries on that list have been picked off, right? Now, do you not think that that's worth investigating? If so, why hasn't the mainstream media investigated it?
Well, I believe it has.
No, it has not. You're talking to an expert here, mate, on that. I'm on this, all my waking hours, and I have been for 26 years. I know what they investigate and not start. Let me ask you another question. Because you accept, do you, that we were not told the truth about weapons of mass destruction in Iraq, right?
Sure, yes.
Right?
Yes.
That there was an invasion based on what was actually a lie, and the knowing lie, that invasion was catastrophic. Hold on, let me finish, then you can come in. It was a catastrophic lie and created catastrophic circumstances for Iraqis. As a result of that invasion, catastrophe has expanded across the Middle East. Okay?
Sure.
Who told us that there were weapons of mass destruction in Iraq when they knew there weren't?
Well, the British and US government, didn't they?
Let me put it simpler for you. The very same people, not even the same agencies, the same people that told us the official story of 9/11. Now,
okay.
as a mainstream journalist, you can have this journalistic schizophrenia that you can accept that you were lied to over a catastrophic invasion and all the consequences that have followed, but accept every last word of the official story of 9/11.
conclusion that the ICs and whatever these fundamentalists are actually, I don't know, established or actually run by the Americans.
They are run by the Americans, and they're created by the Americans. And because of compartmentalization, only having people know what they need to know to make their contribution, the vast majority of people, the jihadists, they will not have a clue about that. There was a television investigative reporter in France recently who went undercover with a terrorist group in Europe. When he came out and spoke on the television channel, he said what he was dealing with was not Islamic fundamentalists, but basically young people who were completely lost, completely manipulated, and he called them fast food jihadists who had no clue where I can't go, what I can investigate and what I can't investigate. And thus I am doing the job that if the mainstream media did the same without constraints, we would live in a very different world, because we would know things about what is happening politically in terms of finance and endless other things that we don't currently know. And it's kind of interesting and so appropriate that we're talking at this time when emails leaked by WikiLeaks have confirmed the themes of so much that I've been writing about over the years, not least the Clinton family that I've been exposing since the mid-1990s, and how what we call democracy is actually a farce.
But when we talk about your predictions, you've made many predictions or prophecies, if you will. David, who are you actually? If you would have to introduce yourself in a few sentences, how would you do that?
Well, first of all, welcome to this crystal cave. I'm sure this is a first for you as it's a first for me.
It is.
How would I describe myself? Well, years and years ago, I was what is called a mainstream journalist. And there were constraints, obviously, in what you could write, what you could say, the areas that you could go into. And there were things called editors saying, that can get in, that can get on air, that can't. I'm still a journalist, but I have no constraints. I don't have anyone telling me where I can go and where Russians. I'm late for school, it's the Russians. And, when you see what has come out just through the Clinton emails and the emails of the Democratic Party, and you see, for instance, as I've been saying for so long, that ISIS and Al-Qaeda and other terrorist groups are actually funded and put into place to create an enemy by the West, not least Britain and America. And now we're having it confirmed through these emails that Hillary Clinton knew that Saudi Arabia and Qatar were...
Well, there are many people who disagree with your conclusions of these emails.
And? What are your conclusions then?
Well,
when she's saying that she knew that Qatar and Saudi Arabia were funding ISIS and terrorist groups, while she was taking multi-millions from the same Qatar and Saudi Arabia for her Clinton Foundation.
Do you draw straightforward for the years? What has become true specifically?
Well, first of all, very topically, I said in the 1990s that the plan was for a third world war. And this would pitch the West against China and Russia. At the time I said that, there was no evidence whatsoever that that was going to be the case. In fact, the evidence was the opposite of that. Things were quite calm. Now, when you look around you, if you do it with an open mind, you can see that pieces are blatantly being put into place to trigger such a conflict. You've got this massive build-up of NATO more and more.
So we're already in the middle of
not least in relation to Estonia. And you've got this blatant demonization of Russia. You know, I burnt the toast. It's the